Hi, and welcome to Camera Music and this wonderful pre-concert talk with members of the Escher Quartet and pianist Terrence Wilson. Joining me right now are Brooke and Brendan Speltz of the Escher Quartet. Terrence will join me later. I'm Steve Wagaman, president of the Chamber Music Society of Detroit, and it is a massive, massive pleasure to welcome you guys, I guess, back onto camera music. We'll explain what that means in a second, but hello.
Hey, Steve, great to see you. Great to see you.
Yeah, of course, we met for the first time at the height of the beginning of the pandemic when the two of you were sequestered together in a house in Philadelphia, and the two of you plus I guess Brooke's wife, you guys formed yourselves into an ensemble called Quartet Trio and gave one of the most memorable concerts of my life because in the middle of it, our webcasting system failed and you guys intrepidly found your own way to YouTube. Lots happened since then. You've been busy?
Well, I'm actually a little wistful for those times because we were the only act in town, so to speak. So very little competition. It was a interesting little experiment.
Yeah.
I would say it was the most memorable performance because the playing was just so exquisite, but I guess it was more because of the technical difficulties.
Well, no, the playing was really, really fine. And what was really fun was putting together the archival version of that concert and patching together what was recorded on YouTube with what we had from before it was my hard drive crash before that. And then putting a little slide in the middle that said, at this point, things went to hell in a handbasket.
You know, it's all so appropriate because everyone was learning on the fly all the technical aspects of live streaming. So in a way, it made perfect sense that there was a incident like that.
But for us, it was for Quartet Trio, and I mean specifically for the three of us, it was sort of the high water mark of our early live streaming efforts. It had been sort of a month and a half after the pandemic had really set in, and really, I remember that whole day leading up to that stream, really feeling like it was a concert day, even though nobody left the house and we just sort of were huddled in there. It really felt like a concert day. Putting on the suit and getting ready and having a dress rehearsal and all of that. For such a horrific time, it's such a fond memory.
Yeah, the brief sense of normalcy, I would say, preparing for that concert.
Well, and you played it with such passion. I have a theory about string quartets that the first violinist and cellist, if they're a matched pair, it really works. And of course, your day job is the Escher Quartet. Tell me a little bit about the background of the Escher Quartet.
Yeah, sure. Actually, Brendan and I are relative newcomers to the Escher Quartet. I joined in 2015. Brendan joined in 2019. The quartet sort of had its inception back in 2005, 2006.
Okay.
Two of the founding who are still Adam Barnett Hart, the first violinist, and Pierre Lapointe, were both students, grad students of Pika Zuckerman, and they joined the violinist and cellist and started the Escher Quartet. And there has been a little bit of turnover over the years, but yeah, so really it was at Manhattan School of Music about 16 years ago now that the quartet began. And, they sort of very early on came under the auspices of Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, which really has since then, for the last 12 years, served as a sort of base of operation for the quartet in New York City.
Nice, nice. Well, it's a wonderful quartet. I guess it's maybe your first performance for the Chamber Music Society of Detroit, long overdue. And we're really looking forward to it. We're going to hear, of course, the Brahms Piano Quintet on the second half with Terrence Wilson. And that's one of the great pieces for that combination of instruments. I guess more piano concerto-like than the other quintets, but a spectacular piece for the strings as well. And I guess you guys have played that a few times.
Yeah, once or twice, but it's always so different depending on the pianist that you perform it with, because as you said, the pianist makes up more than 1/5 of the influence on the piano quintet.
Right.
So it's always a different piece, and it never feels the same. It never feels the same when you perform it multiple times with the same pianist, let alone with different pianists. And we will be sort of embarking on this for the first time, but certainly not the last, actually, with Terrence.
Right.
And so that'll be really a great treat for us.
Yeah,
Well, he's a wonderful pianist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say it's one of those pieces early in your musical development that you hear for the first time and you just can't wait to play.
Uh-huh.
It's one of the, it's one of those hallmark pieces. So always exciting.
I was out in the Music Academy of the West more years ago than I care to admit, and played that piece for the first time. And actually remember going out, renting a sailboat and going out in the Santa Barbara Bay with them. And I was the only one that really knew how to sail. And so I was captaining the sailboat, and it felt right.
No kidding. No kidding.
Just like the pianist is the captain of the.
Well, you're talking to two Music Academy of the West alums here.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think we ever rented any sailboats when we were out there.
Okay.
Was the curmudgeon of them all, Steve Zeitlin, there when you were there?
No, but I went to Eastman and spent many, 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 many hours in his studio. Actually, I guess he was out there, but yeah, we'll hold that for another conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we've all got Svi stories. I actually played more in his studio than I did for any of the 3 piano teachers I had while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I was constantly in his studio playing with strings.
Incredible musician, amazing musician.
Yeah. Well, and before the Brahms, you're doing the 10th Dvorak quartet. And I see that 10th quartet, and I think he wrote 10 quartets. Well, he wrote a lot of quartets. And I guess string quartet players think of Dvorak very much as a quartet composer, but there's so many things he's perhaps more famous for. But talk to us a little bit about the Dvorak quartets and sort of where this one fits in the lineup.
The E flat major, and this is sort of the beginning of the late sort of more frequently performed Dvorak quartets. I mean, the first 8 or 9 are just almost never performed. They're very early pieces. This one, I mean, just from the very beginning, has such a wonderful tenderness to it that we really closely associate with Dvorak's sort of late string writing. I mean, his whole set of, you would call them his late quartets, but the last 5 or so are really staples of the repertoire. And most famously, we think of his American string quartet, which gets performed about as much as any quartet in the repertoire. But all of them, the C major, the G major, the A flat major, I mean, these are just monumental works that we, in particular, we really love to play later Dvorak quartets. It really sort of suits our desires musically and the way we like to sort of make our tone and create sound. It's a great landscape for us.
Right. Well, and of course he was a well known to Brahms and vice versa.
Yeah, they were at the end of their life. I mean, they had sort of a decent friendship blossoming, and certainly tremendous amount of respect. I mean, Brahms famously said after hearing Dvorak's cello concerto that he wished he had known that one could write for the cello in that fashion, and if he had, he would have written the cello concerto himself.
Yeah. Wow. And then you're opening this program with this absolutely gorgeous piece that I will confess I didn't know a thing about until I sat down and opened up my laptop this morning, and I thought I better know something about this. And so I found a YouTube recording of the Chinique Chamber Orchestra playing it. And wow,
Yeah.
what a piece.
Yeah, and why it hasn't been performed more often the last 50 years is entirely different conversation. But similar to the Adagio of Samuel Barber,
But not
George,
quite as sad.
no, definitely not as devastating, that's for sure. But a similar story. I mean, both were Curtis graduates. George Walker was a little bit later. And Walker was also a wonderful, accomplished pianist, was a student of Rudolf Serkin, but sort of focused more on composition as his career went on. Also wrote his quartet while he was rather young, and this he actually wrote while he was still a student at Curtis. And it was the second movement that he was so popular that he arranged it for string orchestra, and that's how it was sort of brought more to the masses in a similar fashion to Barber's Adagio. But both their original form are as in the middle movement of their string quartets. And so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities there, and it's and both happen to be, for both composers, their most performed works.
Right. Well, I was completely unfamiliar with it. I knew George Walker just because there was a fellow student at Eastman who played his second piano sonata in a recital, and I thought, well, that's a really cool piece. But it's wonderful to see this discovery of in sort of, I want to call it traditional mainstream concert world, of more works by African American composers, and we happen to have a lot this year, and it's just wonderful that you included this on the program, and I think it's a piece that people are going to want to hear over and over and over. So
yeah, we played a string quartet, Florence Price, this summer at Aspen, and it's just stunningly and complicated and as sophisticated as music gets, really. So I think a lot of these pieces are coming to the forefront now.
Yeah, next month we have Michelle Can, who's new faculty member at Curtis, doing a solo piano recital. She, like you, made her Detroit debut on camera music, but she's including the Florence Price Piano Sonata and has been playing the Florence Price Concerto all over the place. I went down and heard her with the Cleveland Orchestra, and it was a spectacular success for her and for the piece. But we are so looking forward to having you guys here, and I can't wait to. I feel like I've spent many hours with you, and I'm not even sure we've met in person. So,
Yeah.
I will say, especially for the two of us, that Steve, you and Detroit CMS occupy a very special and significant place in our hearts and in our memory from a very turbulent time. And I think we'll always remember the experience of doing camera music in April of 2020, and sort of the brief respite that it brought to us. And so to be able to come there in person and with our main gig, our quartet, and perform for the first time on that series, it's an honor. So we're really thankful.
Absolutely.
Well, and there will be many people in your audience, both present in the room and online, who will remember that concert well. And so welcome home when you come.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Really excited to be here with Terrence Wilson, who is coming to perform the Brahms Piano Quintet with the Escher Quartet on October 16th 2021 at the Seligman Performing Arts Center. Terrence, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you. Of course, you've been on our radar screen for quite a while here in Detroit, especially. I guess it was in the March of 2020, which was the pandemic. When
Yes.
you replaced Andre Watts
Oh,
for a concert with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Tell us about that.
oh boy, this was quite an experience on every level. Well, for one thing, I was going through some health crises
Mm.
in the months leading up to the beginning of the pandemic and my engagement with the Detroit Symphony. And I had a bit of a scare, and I had to go in for some pre-admission testing
Mm.
for a procedure to make sure that what was manifesting was not a form of malignancy.
Wow. Okay.
So I had a biopsy scheduled, and the week that I was scheduled to have all the pre-admission testing done was the week after I got a call from my manager saying, "We've got a cancellation, Beethoven 5 with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Can you do it?" And
no would be the wrong answer.
no would be the wrong answer, because God forbid I had cancer and died, I will have played Beethoven 5th with the Detroit Symphony first.
Yes.
So it would have been all right.
Oh.
So immediately I said yes. And I called my doctors and they said, "Is it really that important?" I said, "Yes, this is really important." And they said, "Okay, well, fine." They said, "Well, fine, but we're not sure when you get back, how soon we're going to be able to fit you in for this procedure. So just bear that in mind as you're playing Beethoven 5.
Work on it, guys.
Anyway, I just, the drama of my life and the angst and the anxiety and the worry and all of that was just something I put into the experience of playing Beethoven 5.
You dumped it into the piece.
Because after all, isn't that really what music is? If not the state of the human psyche or the human experience, especially with a piece
Right.
like that. I mean, Beethoven 5, right?
Of course.
So as far as I was concerned, I was in my glory, and then afterwards, I came back and I contacted all my doctors, and they said, "Well, how did it go?" I said, "Well, I think it went pretty great." "Okay, fine. Well, we're going to rush you through your pre-admission testing. You're going to get it all done in one day now, because we are putting you through with this procedure, because with COVID now wreaking havoc across the world, we're not sure if we don't get you in now, we don't know when we're going to get you in. And God forbid this is something malignant, we don't have a lot of time to waste." So I went in, and thankfully all was well that ended well. I did not have anything cancerous, thank goodness. And I was able to find out what it was, and it was a matter of antibiotics for a year, and now I'm cured.
That is so fantastic. What a story. When I asked that question, I was not expecting this.
Well, I know it.
I guess you weren't either.
Well, I had a sense it wasn't a perfunctory question, so I figured I'd better go ahead and give the honest answer.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. That's, we've had conversations with a number of really great musicians like yourself, and the pandemic has manifested itself in all kinds of interesting, creative ways, and I guess the common theme among all, if not most, if not all, is that there's been a period of incredible introspection.
Yes.
And I'm sure that was the case for you, given what happened right at the start of it.
Well, absolutely. You know, I mean, in a way, it was a blessing, as unwelcome as the pandemic was. It did provide me an opportunity, as long as I was going through this health thing, it did provide me an opportunity to recuperate and heal and rest and take care of myself in a way that I might have neglected otherwise. And you're right, it was an opportunity for reflection and reconnecting with the simple things of life that we take for granted sometimes, like sitting outdoors in a beautiful park and reading a book, or you know, walking on the beach or something like that. You know, so I luxuriated in that during the pandemic, as well as, you know, learn some new repertoire and things like that.
Yeah, well, and of course that kind of connection with the outdoors and sort of the simpler things in life was so important to Brahms. And
Yeah. Oh,
you're
yeah.
playing one of his great pieces with a wonderful string quartet. But you know, tell us about your relationship with the Brahms Quintet.
Well, it's, you know, it's, well, first of all, Brahms chamber music is some of my most fulfilling experiences as a musician has been playing Brahms chamber music. It's just glorious music, and the quintet is just I'm at a loss of words. It's big in every way, and yeah, it's interesting to look at photos of Brahms, you know, and see this big, you know, burly, you know, bearded man,
Right.
you know, and it gives you the first impression, if you didn't know any better, that, you know, he might have been this sort of gruff, you know, beast of a man. But as we hear through his music, there's this cradling, nurturing, sensitive side, which is delightfully at odds with sort of the visual impression you get when you see old pictures of him. But no, this piece is just glorious, and every movement in this piece is just an ineffable experience to play, as much as just to hear.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear you do it with the Escher Quartet. I'm intensely jealous. Years ago, I played the piece a few times, but not like you will, I'm sure. But you know, it's an amazing piece to play. I did have one crazy experience in the penultimate chord of the last piece. You know, the low C. The string broke out of the piano and embedded in the wall about 3 inches, having passed right by the head of the violist. So,
oh my goodness.
That won't happen
Wow.
to you here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's not an easy piece to play. It is definitely a real challenge, but a satisfying one, you know, something, it's you know, the meat and potatoes, you know. And I enjoy it as much as everything else I played of Brahms. It's almost, I mean, in terms of its heft, it's like the piano concertos. I mean, I don't miss the piano concertos when I hear this quintet or even the G minor quartet, for example.
Well, you know, I'll confess that I looked at your recent career stuff, and when they were asking me, what quintet would you like Terrence to play with us? Brahms.
Yeah.
This needs a dude who could play concertos.
That's something. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, no, this is one of the old war horses of chamber music,
Yeah.
of the repertoire, and I'm glad I've had a few decades of training in it. So I should hope that by now I have
Yeah.
something interesting to say about it. I think
Well,
so.
I think you'll love our audience. It's one of the most uncommonly attentive and sort of tapped in audiences you'll experience outside of a major music school. Rapt silence is what I mean,
Oh,
it's not
wow.
dead silence. It's
Uh-huh.
a lot of energy. And they love great music making, and so then I know they're just going to have a wonderful experience listening to you play. And welcome back to Detroit, and
Thank
welcome
you.
to the Chamber Music Society of Detroit.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. I can't wait.
All right, we'll see you soon.
You bet.